Evening.
Your chicken bag. Oh, I left it in my truck. I'm sorry. I know that's a talking piece. I'm sorry. Betty Lou was cold.
All right, 6:30, I'd like to call the meeting to order. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to remind everybody these proceedings are being recorded for the sole purpose of preparing accurate minutes. Recording are overwritten following the approval of the minutes, eliminating all unofficial records of these proceedings. Yes, do you have any guests?
I think so.
No guests.
I don't have an interesting.
You don't have?
Thank you.
Okay, you have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 18th, 2020. First and second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, status of the program annual.
Dan is on the video, so I don't know if since he was the leader at the workshop of the commissioners, I don't know if you want to do the kind of the update of how our meeting with commissioners went, Dan? Except I'm not facing you, Dan.
He's muted.
You're muted.
Well, how about if I start and others join in, because you know, a lot went on, but I think it was a really important meeting because there were a lot of things that they needed to focus on and their solicitor needed to focus on. And Dawn, you did a really good job of pointing all those things out to them. And we had everything highlighted of what they needed to make decisions on. I think that their grasp of what we're doing was improved by having this meeting. I think there was still some confusion even about the relationship to the farmland program. But I think we've gotten that cleared up. I think Commissioner Sofranco is up to speed with us now, and in really good shape in terms of understanding the program. So they had a lot of questions about the program and how it worked, and I think it was very valuable to have that meeting. You folks on the board had a much better understanding of how things are working than they did, because you've been through all this, and now they're caught up. And they told us that they would review things within the next few weeks. They gave their solicitor, I think, 2 weeks to respond to things, and so we should hear from them sometime, well, definitely before the next meeting, about their reaction to the program guidelines that Dawn basically wrote and that you all approved, and they're you know, we'll see what they have to say, but I believe they're on track to let us know what that is before the next meeting. I'm sure there's lots to add, but those are some highlights.
So when was that meeting, this morning?
No, it was January 30th.
Okay, January 3rd.
That was about 2 weeks
Okay.
ago.
Yeah, and it was good. Their solicitor was there and really got to hear. There's a lot of legal issues and, well, really in financial issues of how the money will flow from the county to the applicant. And Bob, the solicitor, asked us to put together a
One of the missing things that we don't have yet is the county needs is a grant agreement. And so I asked the solicitor if he wanted to work on putting that together, or if he'd like us to put something together and then he can then work from there, and he requested that we put something together. I used Monroe County's grant agreement as a model and adjusted that, and right now it's working its way around the technical advisory folks, and then it'll then we'll send it up to this lister for his review as well.
Like you'll do that before they have another meeting?
It'll be ready to go in a couple days to send up to him.
I think they asked for 2 weeks to review
Well,
everything.
he said he would probably take 2 weeks to review it.
But I think we all still said that kind of the goal of getting the program up and running and doing the, like the public announcement, and I think that, well, there's gonna be announcements at the May 1st session that Anne is doing. That's gonna be at the beginning of her session. They're gonna announce the open space program is going to be opening soon, and then I think after that, so the goal is early summer, that we would have that kind of grant workshop session. And then open the grants after that. One of the discussions that did come up with the commissioners that we had here was, when will the grant bonds be? What will that look like? And there was some talk of having it be kind of a rolling, and if, the applicant gets their application in on time, then it would be, a certain amount of time would go by, and then it could go to the Open Space Advisory Board. However, I talked to Christine DeTore, who's now the DCNR regional advisor, but used to be the open space coordinator at Monroe County, and she had recommended that we do no more than 2 grant rounds a year, just from a logistical standpoint, especially since we were talking about having site visits for the projects, that just logistically, it would be a lot easier to try and gather everybody for 2 site visits a year instead of multiple site visit trips a year. And also, the other logistical things involved with the grant process. So I don't know if that's something that the board wants to discuss and kind of make that recommendation back to the commissioners, or if we want to wait to see what they come back with. Because that was.
May I add something? I was one of the ones who was, the opinions were all over the place on how we should do this. I was one of the ones that was saying I thought we should have a rolling situation. And I no longer feel that way. I now feel that the 2 rounds a year is we're getting advice from people who've done it, and they're saying, Anne told us about a program down her way, and Christine DeTore is really good at information, and so I think we should take their advice. So even though I was one that was really promoting the open way to do it, my mind has been changed.
And the other thing that I talked to Christine about is, we were also talking about, and again, this might be something that have to come from the commissioners first, is how the money is going to work. Because we talked about, obviously, the most of the money is going to go to closing, but like those due diligence funds, is there going to be an upfront payment? Or we talked about like rolling reimbursements. But again, Christine said, the more you can limit it, the better, because just the county stuff that you have to go through to get a check approved is so much work that it's probably easier to try to limit the checks that go out the door. So I don't know if that would mean that we would do, like we talked about, a preliminary payment for the due diligence funds. And then when the grant is, or when the project is closing, they would get the rest of the funds. Or if there would be some sort of closeout after that. But if we do want to get funds to like municipalities ahead of time to help with those due diligence, maybe that's just an initial upfront payment instead of the reimbursements. Or maybe we just decide that there is no initial payment and they get everything before you go to closing.
Well, that's probably something that commissioners would have to figure out and have maybe some kind of designated fund available to draw from.
Yeah,
And then
they did talk
reimburse
about,
their-
that was one of the things that I think Dan and Dennis brought up to the commissioners is, well, and the commissioners brought up as well, is, how are we there's gotta be funds there. So how is that
Yeah,
timing
yeah.
gonna work? And that's another reason I think to maybe have the 2 grant rounds, and And, it'll take a certain amount of time to process those grants before award recommendations are made. And maybe that would be enough time for the commissioners to like borrow or figure out how they're gonna do that money, but that's a question for them. For the
The
commissioners.
6 months are gonna roll around pretty quickly. And we'll just have to time it so that it synchronizes with the DCNR deadlines.
Would there be any possibility to put a time frame on the, like, say up to 5 years that the applicant can defer payment
It is 3.
because
It's
of taxes?
right now, the grant paid, you have to use the grant money within 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, you have to close the project within 3 years.
We're just following the DCNR guidelines. When you get a contract and an award of a grant, from that date, you got 36 months to close out the project.
And looking at some other programs, there were some that were 2 years, some that were 18 months. I thought 18 months was too short. 2 years is probably okay, but I just went to 3, we ended up with 3 years in the program manual because that lined up with the DCNR grant award.
Maybe after we finalize the grant agreement, and send it on to the commissioners, we can email everyone a copy of, it's pretty tight. I don't know if that's the right word. There's a lot of things in there that hold the applicant to the county, the county controlling the process of the funding, throughout the whole process.
And again, we're not reinventing the wheel there. We're using a model of somebody that I'm sure spent a lot of time putting together their agreement.
Is there any other input on this twice a year idea concept?
Sounds pretty fair.
Now we gotta get interest. But that sounds, I mean, if that's what other counties do, I mean, why not stay in line with them?
Well, I mean, some counties, I think, just do it once a year.
Oh.
And so I was arguing, because we were talking about rolling and at the meeting, we were talking about rolling or quarterly. And Christine was like, no, that's just too much. And so that's why I'm now suggesting twice a year. I think that twice a year gives the applicant more flexibility because if they're doing a project that doesn't require DCNR funding, then they have more flexibility and be able to move that project forward more quickly if there's 2 rounds. And I think that 2 rounds is probably feasible for the.
I think it's a good start, and then,
Yeah. You can always
obviously
adjust
down
it.
the road, we
Yeah.
can always modify.
Exactly. This isn't etched in stone. And once, there's discussion with the commissioners in the planning office about how this is going to be staffed in the planning office. So once that person is managing the program, really the county can set a deadline date, as other counties do, when they have their manual out and announce their next round, they have their new deadline date. And so it could be changed down the road if it's not fitting exactly the way they like it.
And as an aside, DCNR used to have 2 rounds a year and then they went down to 1 and just a year or 2 ago, they had a second one just because they had extra money. But I think like probably 15 years ago, it used to be twice a year, right?
Yeah. Sometimes they have an intermediate round when they're trying to do funding.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to, have this discussion and have it in the minutes that we're making that recommendation for twice a year. And again, it's just a recommendation to the commissioners.
Yeah,
I think a formal recommendation would be good.
I myself, I feel that, these are the things that come best for the commissioners to decide, I know that, our advisement is important, but, ultimately, I think we're all in the same boat where we're in lockstep with whatever the commissioners feel.
Yeah, we could leave it open-ended at this point. It doesn't.
I mean, unless someone else feels that we should make that recommendation.
Sounds good. You guys are the facilitators, you're telling us like basically what we need to know to do.
Staffed it with other programs
Yeah.
and got positive feedback.
So, I'd like to make a motion to, have the commissioners, recommend the 2 2 times a year. That's what we're looking towards to.
Who wants to make, I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
If nobody's looking, why raise your hand? It doesn't count.
You wanna make a motion?
That's right.
Jerry, I'm gonna give it to you, Pat. You got it, man, Jerry. Okay. I'm looking now, writing Jerry first and Dave second, okay.
Guys wear the Penn State hat, you know.
Maybe I don't want to see.
Come on. Okay, that's good.
Is that done? I think it was mentioned about the May 1st date and I don't know if you want to just explain to the board what the municipal workshop's gonna be and how, what we said and discussed, Dan had brought it up, that we don't know yet when we're gonna get information back from the commissioners and when we're gonna finalize everything. But we're kind of setting May 1st as a target date because there's gonna be a municipal workshop. And we could, in the beginning of that agenda, you know, if the commissioners are ready to announce. to
And it's
announce
just
that.
announcing that the program is put together and soon there will be a workshop and it will soon be open. It's not, you know, locking anything in. It just, to an extent, I think, again, it could just be an update of where the program is, just to keep it in people's mind and let them know that it's almost ready to go.
That's what I envisioned, and maybe one of the Open Space Advisory Board members wants to stand up at the beginning of the meeting and make that announcement. So it's just a quick update that, you know, the referendum passed and the advisory board's been hard at work recommending the criteria and program manual to the commissioners, and whatever state we're in by May, as far as the commissioners accepting that, you know, we'll just a quick update.
And do you want her to give a blurb on what that meeting is, the
Yeah,
goal of that
and
meeting
can
is?
you just give a quick blurb on what that municipal workshop is that we're working with?
Sure. We've done a series of workshops on zoning standards that help communities accommodate growth and still conserve steep slopes and woodlands and open space. And this is sort of a hands-on, if your community has these standards and you're a planning commission member or an elected supervisor or a zoning officer who reviews subdivision and land development plans, what are some of the things you look for on those plans? So it'll be sort of hands-on, gathering around some examples and reflecting the type of ordinance standards that I think now 7 townships have either adopted or in the process of looking at. So this, I think, is our 4th Carbon County zoning workshop.
The announcement, that's the commissioners meeting you're referring to? For someone from the.
No, that's at the
advisory board?
beginning of this
At the
municipal
beginning
workshop.
of this workshop?
Yes.
Okay.
May 1st.
Yes.
Would be held here. We've held the other ones here.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be okay with, if everybody's in agreement with coming up with someone to speak, I'd be okay with it myself. Unless anybody else would like to do it.
Totally volunteer, so. Either one.
And what time is that at?
6.
6:30, I'm pretty sure. We're in the process of making sure that time works for the county. I can't tell if Dave's there or not, but
He's not.
I think
I think
6:30.
it's tentatively 6:30 to 8, right?
Yeah, we had to wait. This conference room is gonna be tied up for a certain period of time after the election. That they can't use it for meetings. And that's what we were going back and forth with. And so it was Wednesday, May 1st. Is the target date we have. You'll hear more about it as we finalize things.
So you wanna, Make a motion as to approve, would make that announcement on board, or the,
Continue the motion.
We can play that by ear.
go,
Once it-
jump up.
Once the time is right.
That's it, bud. At least we have representation. Volunteer. Yeah, you're volunteering and Sarah,
yeah.
she could be there too. Whoever wants to be there, right?
Yeah, I think we could.
I don't think we
Plug
need a
that in
motion
the
for that.
agenda last,
No.
at the last minute.
Fred and Sarah will attend.
Is that all under the, program name?
Yes.
Yep. Recession of signing of the program.
I'll start out, I guess. As we mentioned, we talked about before, something else that the Open Space Advisory Board can work on that's related to the open space program is the idea of, signage. So I kind of envision like those steps being, what's the logo going to be? Is it similar to this? Is it just this adjusted, the one that's being passed around? So what's the logo gonna be? So I think people submitted in your packet should be, Jason printed out a number of logos and signs, picture. So the first thing is the logo, then the second thing would be, kind of the signage requirements. The dimensions, the size, basically what the design of the sign itself, what those requirements would be.
I
And-
have a
Go ahead.
Sorry, I have a question for Don and Ann, and so if there's DCNR funding, there's a project acknowledgement sign, which they have a guideline for. But yet.
Well, that's just really language that needs to go on a sign.
Right,
There's not like a design
right.
for the sign. And a lot of times people put that on the bottom of whatever
Okay.
sign they're making, or I've seen instances where they'll hang another little thing at the bottom of the preserve sign or whatever sign it is, they'll just hang that language separately, or sometimes it's incorporated into the sign itself. And I'm not sure if the Monroe County one had that in it.
Because the project acknowledgement sign is required, and yet the ones I've seen did not have that citation of the DCNR funding. And again, I'm not an expert on signage. I helped design all the DNL trail. In fact, there's a manual called Visually Speaking, and I learned a lot from a lot of smart people. And one of the things is, and even with signs I've seen around the state, is the lettering is always too small. And so you almost have to pick an average speed of the roadway, 35, 45 miles an hour. And are you gonna be able to see it as you're driving by? Whenever I go to the airport on 248, there's a farm. In fact, we just did some plantings there last year. I'm trying to think where it is. Before you hit Airport Road. And there's a sign there, this farm is preserved.
Seamsville, there's three of them,
Yeah,
there's three right in the road.
Seamsville.
Well, so I think part of the signage design would be that, the name of the property has to be a certain size and a certain type of font. Regarding the DCNR language, if you look on the one page. I don't know, okay, so we'll count from the bottom back, 1, 2, 3. The third or fourth page from the back of the Monroe County one. There's a number of signs there, and it's hard to see here, but I have it on my iPad so I can zoom in. Yeah, but so a number of those signs actually have both open space, county open space and DCNR language or DCNR language. I believe that Austin T. Blakely one now has a thing hanging at the bottom with the DCNR language.
Jason,
But we're really looking at
Dave
two
signs are.
things. logo and then sign.
Well, because the logo,
Yeah.
we're looking at signage, but we're talking about logo because we don't have one and you would want that on the sign, so it's kind of, we can talk about logo, we can talk about signage.
I like how all the logos are in the top middle, and I think I see that a lot wherever I go. Because it's that thing that catches your eye, you know that that's the logo for whatever's on the bottom, if you can't even read it, right? You automatically know that that's the case, so I'm definitely a proponent for top middle for the logo. Like really,
Can I inject something here?
Mhm.
When we're talking about the signage, you know, as someone who had to put up those signs, we put the DCNR language on a separate sign and we put it up. But we don't know if all of these projects are going to have a DCNR grant. So we don't want to.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't be a requirement. That language wouldn't be a requirement. We would, the only requirement for the sign here would be that it contained the Carbon County language. And there could be, and I don't even, it might say within this Monroe County one that if you have DCNR language, you can include this on the sign too.
That's what I'm getting at.
But yeah, it's not, the DCNR language isn't a requirement. For this signage program, the only requirement would be that it have the Carbon County.
So I think we ought to design a Carbon County sign, and if the DCNR language has to be added, or, you know, it can be a separate sign or it can be added to this sign, but I think we need to design a Carbon County sign and not worry about the DCNR and let the, you know, that can come afterwards. But I think we need to pick a logo and decide on some wording. And I really recommend, just like that, the signs Dennis was talking about, this farm is preserved. I mean, something simple, and it should say Carbon County Open Space Program or something like that on it. But something simple that you can read while you're driving past it.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that if it was an easement, this property is preserved similar to the farmland sign. But if it's a preserve, it would be, you know, such and such preserve, and then in smaller language, it would have the Carbon County language.
I think it's important to have a discussion about, because Fred and I we're talking back and forth. In my mind, this sign is what was just said, is the advertisement for the program, and it's put in the most visible spot. So it's put at the most highly trafficked roadway. It's in my mind, this is just my opinion, separate from if there is a trailhead and a kiosk, like you see some of these, it's not that. Or like Dan mentioned, and I'm sure probably at Lehigh Gap Nature Center on the building coming in, there's a project acknowledgement sign of the state funding or any federal funding there. It's usually at the visitor center or a physical building where you're a pedestrian and you can read it. You know, it's a plaque somewhere, on a pavilion or a building.
There's
So-
one on the porch and one at the Arboretum for that project. So yes, we have that sign, but it's in a kiosk or on a porch.
Right. So in my mind, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a promotional advertisement
Well,
that
I
announces
think
to the world.
this does a really good job of saying that. So the design guidelines and sign types, it's a property identification sign. It's one post, one or two sided, or there's a property identification sign that's two post, one or two sided.
Which one do you mean from?
The Monroe County.
Oh.
I'm using Monroe County because it's next door, and another one of those instances where they spent a lot of time creating this sign program, so maybe it's a good place to start.
right,
Sure. And actually, this program, well, they do have a funding portion of it because the Monroe County program had a portion of that funding from their bond went to, we called it the PEP Fund, Planning, Education, and Promotion. So there was a portion of that money set aside. So they were able to actually have money that they could give grants out for signs. But if you take that out of it, unless Carbon wants to do something similar, I'm not sure if you could take that out of the bond. You'd probably have to talk to a solicitor to see. That's something would need to be figured out, or if it would have to be some other funding, but we'll take the funding aspect out of it for now. I mean, I think that this is only like 3 pages long. It's introductions, purpose and objectives, design guidelines, and then the rest of it is like an FAQ and then examples.
Should we try to figure out like what kind of logo we should do before we start worrying about this line?
Sure, so yeah,
I mean, I kind of like this, that Dan's partner there design, but
One with the water farm and land on it, or the one that's just,
Is that used anywhere now? Or
that was for the
farm?
campaign.
Oh, it's for
so I think we should follow suit with that. However, I do like, you see that little sign down there? If you could put that at the top and then put Carbon County Preserved Open Space. Like maybe get rid of the Carbon County Citizens for and just have that.
Well, I think that the logo is gonna be like a Carbon County open space logo. I think that's what we're talking about, making a carbon, so whether it could be this logo and instead of Carbon County Citizens for, it
Right.
could be Carbon County open space without the,
Yeah.
it could have the words, it could not have the other words.
Right, right,
Carbon County Open Space.
Right.
Program.
yes.
We did have Dan, and I just took it off my
Like it's
Jeep
at the
window.
top and then it would say Carbon County.
The stickers
Preserved
that were
Open
made,
Space.
didn't it say Forever Green on the bottom?
Forever beautiful, it said.
Forever
That
beautiful.
There. And then
But this is the bare logo with no words on it. And this is what you can start with if you want to use this. And then you can put whatever words you want on it. So we have this logo and it can be any words you want. We certainly don't want Carbon County Citizens for water, farms and land on it because that doesn't even exist anymore.
Right, right.
But we do have a copy of just the logo, and that can be used to create a sign or to be used in signage of any kind if you want to use it. And it's Lee's, it's my wife Lee's, and she's giving us permission to use it if we want to use it. So it's not, you don't have to pay for it, you don't have to pay somebody to design one, it's free.
so.
And
at
it's
this point-
recognizable because it was used heavily during the campaign.
At this point, I'd like to make a motion to use the logo that was already pre-made for the our motion.
Okay.
All in favor?
It worked
what-
to get 83%.
So then we probably want to ask Lee if she'd be willing to add different words to it, like Carbon County open space. Is that something,
Let's see,
because I mean, that would be part of the logo, so it'd be something that if she's willing, that I keep facing the wrong way. Hi, everybody. So if Lee was willing to add the words to it, because there's art in that too, and it would be part of the logo, the words are part of the logo.
This one.
Oh, you're on mute.
There's a minor problem with that.
Yeah.
We don't have the software to do that. Her son did that when he was working at the nature center. He volunteered and did put the words on the sign for us, but he's no longer working there. So, we might be able to ask Chad to do it or the new person there to do it, or somebody at the county might be able to do it, whatever you want.
Or
I'll just provide the logo to who's ever going to put the wording on it.
I think
What
that,
system was it done in?
It was an Adobe program, the Adobe Creative Suite.
I have a Canva account. I can play with it in there easily.
I think since the board agreed to use the logo, I think rather than worrying about any wording around it, we should just now look at what the full breadth of the sign is.
Well, I think the logo is incomplete without the words, and the words are part of the art.
Right, well, it's designing all the rest of it, right?
Well, yes, but I mean, there are examples of that. I think we don't want to go to the next step until we have the logo designed, though. That's kind of what we were talking about, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't looking at the traffic light.
So so we have the graphic part of the logo. We need to add the word part of the logo.
Right.
It's still logo.
Well, and these are oblong on like the Monroe County one. I mean, I kind of like the thought of a diamond with the county in the middle of the diamond.
Let me just say this about shape, because the shape the shape is of the sign is gonna determine the cost of the sign. And no one knows what we went through. If you look at the entrance to the Jim Thorpe, you look at all the DNL trail signage. The sign, the entrance sign for Jim Thorpe, the street signs, and they're all these cool curves, but they were super, super expensive. When we tried to get signs up, say in the borough of Summit Hill, and we said the sign is gonna cost $2,400.
Oh,
They said, we're not, because we use National Park Service standards. My only point is if you curve it or have the curve on the top, the more curves you have to the edge of the sign, the more expensive it's gonna cost to have reproduced.
This would be a straight line.
That's all.
Yeah, this doesn't, the logo doesn't
We're
need to.
conservative.
The logo doesn't need to stick out at the top of the sign like this. But again, we're getting into sign design and we haven't finished the logo yet.
why don't you people decide the wording you want on the sign, and I'll ask my friend of mine that does signs for a living, and bring a copy of it in here for the next meeting.
Well,
Okay.
I know he's not gonna be a hog at 2,400.
Well, I think
That's
that might be,
ridiculous.
that's an excellent idea. I think I don't know if we're there.
But
Yeah, but I just don't think, we don't have we're still talking about the logo. We don't have the design yet. If that makes sense. So like, I would suggest that if you wanted to, and, I'm changing our way. Katie mentioned trying it with Canva, wanted to put so maybe for the next meeting, there's a couple of different possibilities and different fonts and different arrangements of the words around the existing graphic. And so that would be the next step of trying to come to a final logo. And then if we can agree on that, then we can start talking about like what size should the sign be, what shape should the sign be? And we can kind of start with the guidelines here and see if that's something that works. I think we've already talked about, we don't want it to have the little bump outs because that's gonna be expensive.
that looks so nice.
I'm sorry, I'm not that.
Yeah, seriously, that sounds like a plan.
The only other thing I would suggest is, like the county logos on the podium there over Dennis's shoulder. Whatever the county has in terms of, branding, confirmation requirements, we should ask that if there is any kind of brand guidelines, font, things like that to keep to, then that way it's inconsistent with what the county has in terms of their brand identity. We don't want to go against that.
Exactly. I was thinking about that, looking at the county logo. And a lot of the low profile interpretive signage we have on the trail, if you look at the bottom, it will have a county logo, it will have a DCNR logo, it'll have a DNL logo. So they kind of put so I guess that's one question. Does the county want to have the county symbol somewhere on the bottom or corner of the sign?
Yeah, but I think the other thing Katie's saying is that once we create this logo and we're proposing it, the county's, as we're working on this, we need somebody at the county, I'm looking at Jason. To see if there are any, what she was saying is, are there any guidelines we need to be following, or can we standards, or can we do what our plan is now, use this, and then we're gonna try out different fonts and different arrangements, artsy arrangements of the words.
And I think of the word byline, like in Monroe County, it was Forever Green. And I should have brought one, Dan. I don't know if you have one handy, the stickers we had made, Lee put on the bottom, Forever Beautiful. And it just kind of stuck. And so it's Carbon County, whether we say Carbon County Open Space Program, Forever Beautiful. Like, most signs have like a byline. of, a catchy kind of, there it is.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, like Lady Bird Johnson.
Yeah.
Don't let her. You can never sleep.
You probably just had to take farm off because this is open space and not farmland.
Right.
Yeah,
I just like that.
yeah.
Oh, I guess that is one question. Since this is open space and not farmland, I was just thinking of the word, but there's an actual picture of a farm here. Are we good with that still being on the logo?
Why not?
It's part of it.
Yeah. But farmland preservation, do they have a sign? Do they have signs?
What's that?
Does farmland preservation have signs? And
Yeah.
what does that look like? Is it just
Oh,
plain?
they're about so
Is that
big.
trees and water on?
I could
Does it
take a
have a
picture of
logo?
them very well.
Okay, yeah.
Do they have a logo on them?
I didn't know if there was a logo
Yeah.
on.
Is it a farmland logo or just the Carbon
Farmland,
County?
yeah.
Oh,
So do you
Preserve
think
farm.
that'll create confusion?
Jason's gonna go up.
That's what I was
I'm pretty
wondering about.
sure David showed me a sign. It's just mostly big words, a green square, green sign. And so they have one, but it was just a pretty simple,
Yeah.
I don't think there was any.
Kind of like what you were talking, probably.
Yeah.
The
I-
one, the one down the one down the street from me has a tractor on the sign.
Oh, okay.
And it says, you know, that it was a preserve farm, Carbon County, but it has a tractor on it.
so I guess my question is, if there's already a farmland preservation logo, do we want to keep the, and I'm probably, since the person that created the logo is no longer around to adjust the logo, I'm causing a bunch of trouble, but do we want to keep the farm in the logo? Because this is open space and farmland is a separate program.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. I would keep it.
I mean, everybody could just say, no, it's fine, so,
Oh, no.
but I just want to bring it up.
No problem with it.
Yeah, because in this logo, we obviously got the Lehigh River. We wanted to get water, farms and land. So we got water in, we got the farm in, and we got forest, we got a tree.
I know.
Forest go.
I personally like the farm and
Yeah, you can't separate you. It's water.
I think it's good. I mean, hey, if it's.
I don't think people will, again, like I said, most signs I see, like they're too small. And it's too quick when you drive by and you don't really,
As long as the open space and the, open space is indicated big enough that people can see that. Versus the farmland preservation, open space preservation.
or preserved with or protected with.
Oh, here we
Well,
go.
and again, I think there's also two
Here we
different,
go.
Here's a track.
That's cool.
That's got a great.
There you go. I was looking for one on my phone.
But that's what I was looking for as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
so I can see for like maybe easements, we want to do something similar to this. And I know that Northampton County has a preserved, like conservation easement sign, which I think is probably different than their farmland preservation sign. I can look into that.
This is made by Dennis Hawk.
Oh, he's the best.
Huh?
He's the best.
He is
He's
the
a good guy.
He's good.
Yeah, he did a lot of stuff.
And he's not a pig with his prices, but he's the one that's making these signs for the farmland.
And the idea is that these signs go on property that it's still owned by the landowner. It's just preserved.
Yeah.
Whereas like these signs that are in here
Yeah, that.
are like much bigger, like that you see at a nature preserve. So if Carbon County money is used to protect fee simple land to turn it into a nature preserve, you'd want the big sign.
And let me ask a stupid question, but who puts those signs, who will put these signs up then? Like the person that owns the property or?
So if it's fee simple, like preserve, but yeah, it is. Did you say it was? If it's a preserve,
The first one.
I'm sure Nick has a posthole digger on the back of his tractor.
if it's a preserve, it would be the applicant.
Yeah.
And also if it's an easement, it would be the applicant as well. It's just that with the ag program, the applicant is sort of, is the county, basically. So the county puts them up.
Yeah.
But So it's not the landowner. I
Okay.
mean, obviously you'd have to coordinate with the landowner, the underlying landowner for a conservation easement to do it, but it would be the applicants who would be responsible for doing it.
And because it's gonna be a bigger sign, I mean, like, could we get Dennis Hawk to do it, our local guy? To make these signs? Once we figure it out?
I think
No?
you could offer that as maybe, if you were able to set it up for him, but I think you'd have to let the applicant decide where they're gonna go to get the sign.
Oh, okay,
Well, that's why Monroe County has a 5-page sign guideline thing.
gotcha.
But I think
No.
probably Dave, I don't know, probably use the ag funding or
Probably.
to. I mean, it is uniform to have whoever's gonna manage the open space program in the planning office. Maybe to have 2 different size signs, but the signs are purchased, you know.
Again, for an easement, you could require something like this, like say it's gotta be like this, but whatever the easement version is that we develop. But for a preserve, I think you have to like say, here's the guidelines and you do it where you wanna do it, how you wanna do it within these guidelines.
So we're looking at 2 things here. So we're gonna use, we decided that we're gonna use this, the size of our carbon, you know, as a logo for both of the.
Yeah, the logo would be used in both cases.
Okay, all right.
It's just that it would be, so like for this sign, you would switch out.
Yep.
You'd switch out this logo or the whatever logo we create, and then it would say, you know, this property is preserved. We can look at the language, and then it would have some Carbon County open space at the bottom.
I like the consistency like you were saying. It's important.
Yeah, so the sign would be almost identical to that.
Yeah.
The open space logo and different verbiage, but the
Mhm.
fonts and the coloring and whatever. Just for identification.
Continuity, yeah.
Continuity, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely,
So
that's a good
traveling
idea.
around, if you get used to seeing, like you said, you're driving by, the more,
You see it's preserved, but you also know, hey, that I can't go there. It's still somebody owns it, but it's preserved, which is completely different than here we have a nature preserve sign open to the public.
Right, the language is different, but the whole continuity, and that's why we have a sign manual with the DNL, which is 5 counties. All the maroon, all the color is so that when people are driving around, they go, yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
Although the red and green, that's what people are colorblind to, so I question those color choices. No, I mean, I'm not a colorblind person, but if I were, that might be an issue.
Oh, boy.
My husband is, and I bought him the glasses that fix color blindness. It was wild to get him to see stop signs. It was fantastic. But I do want to, my comment about the brand standards for the county, we've got the preservation sign. We do want to ask the county, are you okay with this? We can't be married to it. We've got to, if they have a brand standard, if they've got a logo standard, you know, we've got to kind of accept that too. So we can make this a suggestion, but I don't think we should be saying this is it and that's the end. We have to be flexible on it because they may want it to look like similar to the logo over Dennis's shoulder so that it's conform with all of the other logos they have. The farmland preservation one supersedes all this because it was done before there was any kind of continuity.
well, yeah, all this is ideas and suggestions that are gonna go.
Recommendations to the commissioners,
Yeah.
again.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and with the logo you guys selected, I mean, it's the outline, the geographic outline of the county, so we want it
Well,
to
and
be.
it's, that's on that too.
Yeah, it's on that seal.
Right, right, we want it to be unique.
Are those laurel?
Yeah, Mount Laurels,
And then what's the white blob?
the coal, yeah.
Coal. Okay. The white blob is coal?
Well, it's black, I guess they had to put something in there to make it stand out.
Is it like a mountain of coal?
It's after it's been burned.
Hey, it's my, the lump of coal I put in that park, it's.
Yeah, I think that's, isn't it? I believe
I was guessing myself.
No, I think it's what it is. I mean, my God, you have to get closer up on that thing. What does it look like to you, Dennis? You're the.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
that's,
what it is.
Coal,
yeah,
It's cool.
anthracite coal.
Yeah.
And then you got the mountain laurel.
move on ski areas in the winter time.
First rule of a logo, you shouldn't have a half-hour conversation decided what it shows you. It should be very clear.
Right.
That's a tree and that's a river.
Right, you're right, yeah, the county logo is is busy if used as a sign. Because you're just visually, you want to see the wording and some type of simple logo. We all, in, you know, the Golden Arches, everybody knows what the Golden Arches are, right? Everybody knows what certain images are, they're very simple. What? Here's some of the other ones.
I wondered.
No, seriously, definitely. You can go into Adobe. We can make this happen.
Yeah. Dan, do you have the original like Adobe file for the logo?
Like a JPEG, preferably in a higher resolution.
I think it's a PNG file. Yeah.
Oh, that's fine.
Yes, I have it. I can email it to everybody or anybody that wants it.
That way,
Please,
anybody,
yes.
yeah, I mean, we know that Katie and Sarah are gonna do it, but then like anyone that wanted to on the board wanted to play with it, could play with it.
I'll do that.
It's better start to the professional.
He's probably gonna.
Two-sided.
Well, I think you were looking to see how much it would cost, right?
Yeah.
Not like for him to design, right?
I just ask them and come back with something, and people can decide what you wanna do.
He can design it too with that.
He could do anything.
Yeah, he's good.
He's really the
Farm
farm.
on one side, open space on the other, then find volume and.
Oh, I mean, it's good.
Yeah, so if
Never.
God.
That's
Jason, or
going down.
maybe, you know, so if that's a
Let's start.
two-sided sign,
Yeah,
does,
he did.
like, how does that get mounted on somebody's property? Is it mounted like this, so when you drive by, no matter where
We
you can
just
see
give,
it? or-
them to the property owner, and he puts them up.
Oh, the property owner does it, it's not the county,
Yeah, we have no authority to tell them where they have to put it. So
or
we
how
just-
they have to put it, you just give it.
So
to
we
them?
just deliver it to them, and they put it up somewhere where it suits them.
Do counties, do counties generally tell or decide where they have to, like the exposure that the sign has to have? then?
They might say it has to be along the road, I don't know, I can ask Northampton County.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I know I've seen them already on the side of
If
a
you're spending
barn
the money
or
on a
building,
sign.
you know, and which is really
One
isn't
deal.
prominent, and in other counties, which isn't really prominent, it's better if it would be like along the road somewhere.
You can put it in the property, so it's out of.
Well, maybe there is information in here that says that.
Jason, do you know what we pay for these?
No,
You don't.
I know. Well, then you get into all these issues. Needing a PennDOT permit if it's a state road, or is it a township road or borough road? And.
The
you know,
size of
and
it
then when the
matters.
Plow hits it, you know who's gonna replace it, you know.
Oh, and as an example, this,
That's not-
under the frequently asked questions, they did have cost estimates. I mean, this is probably out of date because it's many years ago, but they had cost estimates for the different sign designs.
Oh. That's a good.
And like it's saying, who do I contact to make the sign? I'm looking,
It's overgrown vines.
I mean, if we could get our local
do we need
guy,
a sign permit?
a local guy, the business, you know, why not?
Right.
It does not say that where you have to put it though. But I mean, like if it's a nature preserve sign, obviously whoever owns the nature preserve, the applicant is gonna want to put it someplace that's usually where you have to get the, the sign permit. I think you probably have to have a sign permit for any of these.
If they can see it and it's inside the right of way, then you don't pay with.
That's fine.
Yeah, except for that one, I think for preserve sign, bigger
Yeah.
preserve sign, you need a
Like
sign
3
permit.
feet. You have to get it permitted.
I can ask that Northampton County as well.
This is.
Yes, it's,
Because this is.
the Largo property up the top of the mountain by Kenny Vaughn there. She had told me that they put it in some kind of reserve like this, but they had to have it maintained for the public hunting for 5 years, and after that it goes back to being private. Do you know anything about that? The Largo property.
Right, I don't know the details, I just, I believe the Nature Conservancy worked on that with the Wargo family.
Oh, yeah.
And so whatever agreement they made.
Pretty much.
They haven't got it open for public public use and hunting for
Right.
5 years, and you had to create a parking lot. And
Right,
after the 5 years, it reverted back to the family.
right. It must have been the negotiations
Yeah,
of either what the property owner wanted, or maybe there was game commission money put in there and they
I don't-
wanted it open. Yeah, I
I
don't
just
know.
thought maybe a new. I did these signs for me.
For everybody's information, I sent the file out to the same list that Jason sends out with the minutes. So you should all have it when you get a chance to check your email.
Thank you.
He doesn't like it.
See, back then, those signs cost some money. Yeah. Well, I think whoever becomes the administrator will, then have to figure out if they can use the open space funding.
I mean, how much do our signs cost when we buy them? You should put them up, you know how much they cost. I know that our kiosks are ridiculously expensive because we get a kit, but
Yeah, a kiosk that is that recycled plastic that will last in perpetuity. They're like $10,000-12,000.
Oh, my God.
No,
We have, yeah, I mean, they're.
we're not requiring kiosks with this program. That's, we're just mentioning that, you know,
If you,
Wildlands
if you
has
go
put
up on
kiosks.
940 to the Thomas Darling Preserve, there's a parking lot, the kiosk, and
Dennis
Yeah,
helped put that kiosk up and the sign out.
And that's how much that costs.
yeah, well, what Wildlands decided to do is buy these standard kits. So again, uniformity, so that all their 14 preserves eventually would have the same looking, kiosk and with the same type roof and everything. And it's pretty vandal proof. I mean, it has to be because
Doesn't stop people from dumping their garbage in front of it though, because that's what I was doing last weekend. Cleaning up garbage. Rubber gloves, digging through garbage, trying to find like identification so that we could call the waste police and
My
but
goodness gracious.
try and go after them, but we couldn't find anything.
I put a 4x4 steel bollards on the switchback trail. They still, with a Jeep, a 4-wheel drive vehicle and a chain, you can move anything.
Pull it right out. Well, this is the world we live in today.
But I may or may not now have a key to a cabin down the road from me that I found in the garbage.
So maybe it was those people that put it there.
Yeah, but that apparently isn't good enough evidence of who dumped the garbage. You need like letters with addresses and stuff, and there was none of that. There were a couple of receipts. There was a nice printout of some kids hockey league or something from New York City. But
Yeah.
nothing substantive that.
Yeah, and on our sign up there, we have the Monroe County Open Space because they provided some of the funding to acquire the, what do we have, 1,100 acres? Thomas Darling Preserve, it's pretty big.
Well, they certainly helped with the 72 acres that the sign is on. Because I took the last of the Monroe County money for that. It was the last in the pot.
Is there any other features we need to talk about that we feel is important? Besides the county outline logo?
I mean, so for like, we need to talk about the logo, then we need to talk about like, do we want to have guidelines for the property identification sign? And what are they going to be? I mean, we don't have to decide on that now. I mean, I think,
Well, why don't we just, you say we're gonna let whoever wants to work on the verbiage to go around it, and then maybe that would help us determine on the size and all that kind of stuff,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah, and
Table that to the next meeting.
I don't know if we should, ask the county right up front about their logo. Do they have any requirements?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll ask tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good before we move on and try to figure that all out.
No big deal.
Yeah. Make it any shape you want.
But you put it up, I can't read it upside down.
Oh, here? Oh, I just put Carbon County, and then I took out the barn, and to see what the barn.
Oh, see, for our preserve up there, we actually have our wildland branded sign, and underneath it is a square version of the Monroe County sign.
I did a lot of work.
Wants to see it.
Could you put like Carbon County, like if you, where you took that barn out, like.
That's
if you
what I was
could-
thinking, was if we could put a ribbon across it or something, like, there's different.
Oh, you already took the barn out.
That's what I was like, I got this.
Since that's a void there, then you could put maybe the county
there's
name in there or something.
I'll do like different things with it and just see. what happens.
Play around with it.
Worked at a tech firm.
Wow, sounds good. Hey,
Yeah, well, that was, and it was down in dip, so it had to be very high.
if you have to take it out, take it out. If not, it's nice in there, but that might work to the advantage if you're trying to put a couple words in there.
See, that's really simple.
Because it's less.
So this is our branded sign, and this is where we put all the Monroe County.
Is anyone hearing, to kind of change the subject a little bit, anyone hearing anything about possible land to be preserved that may come in as our first application or?
I didn't, but I was gonna ask you. Do you hear anything?
There was one inquiry, yeah, I don't want to get into the details, but they're still waiting on other funding and, you know, a lot of these, it's a funding package and, you know, we need this money and this money and this money to put it all together.
So you have one.
There is one,
How much land? Roughly.
11 or 1,200 acres.
Wow.
Well,
Good size.
could we send you back up to the top of Memorial Road on that? The one that abuts the Water Authority?
Yeah,
And maybe talk them into, well, you can develop the stuff out towards the road, but we want to protect the water down over.
You tried that already.
Well,
yeah,
I mean, it wouldn't hurt to try it again.
we'll
So
give you
there's
a
a
big
sign out by the
saddle,
road
I'm
that
sure
says
you can
750
twist them.
acres. for
right,
sale.
right. That would be, yeah, that would be beautiful to preserve.
Yeah, that's the only one I'm thinking about. Even if we could only get half of that.
Right, right. Well, yeah, and I mean, I was throwing out around ideas with them, but they didn't bite on anything.
They
but
wanted to sell it all as one,
They want to
right?
sell it all as one, and we wanted, that's the Pocono Plateau, and right there, and then it goes down to where the Lehigh, or where
To the water
Lehigh
authority.
Water Authority land is.
Right.
And we definitely wanted the forested side of the mountain, even if they did something off the highway. Of some kind of mixed use or townhouses or something,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. But no, they wanted to sell the whole thing. And they had a price in mind that was way above fair market
Ridiculous.
value.
Yeah.
Okay, so, any further business?
I have something for the group. I volunteered after the last meeting to contact Brent Green because he hadn't been showing up at all. I can't see the whole room. Can I assume he's not there?
No, he's not here.
He's not there.
Okay. I called him. He called me back about almost 2 weeks later. And he said that he had a number of reasons why he hasn't been at the meetings and so forth. And he said he did come to one, but he was locked out and couldn't get in. He was late and couldn't get in. But I tried to call him back then to talk to him a little more, and I just can't get him. And I can't even leave messages anymore. His mailbox is full. But the last message I left for him was, if you are interested in continuing to serve on the board, please come to the next meeting, or let someone know that you're interested in continuing to serve on the board. But be at the next meeting. That's the most important thing you can do. And he isn't here tonight. He hasn't been to a meeting. He says he was at 1, but he was locked out, which I can believe because that can happen at that room. If he came.
Calling the person out there. There's been times where there hasn't been somebody out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, maybe he came at 6:45 and nobody was watching anymore. We always watch the first 5 or 10 minutes. But,
Taking on the-
so, according to our bylaws, if someone has not been attending 60% of the meetings, you can recommend to the commissioners that they, that they replace that person on the board. So if I'm just reporting, I'm not recommending anything. I'm reporting that Mr. Green knows that we are noticing he's not here. I told him to show up at the meeting if he wants to continue to serve. He isn't there tonight. He didn't tell anybody that he couldn't be here tonight, I'm assuming. And so I'm just letting you know that according to your bylaws, if you want to, you can ask the commissioners to replace him. You could do that tonight. You could do that at a future meeting, whatever you decide. But I made the effort to make sure that he is informed that we notice his absence.
No, thank you, Dan.
Who is
Is
the owner of the whitewater rafting down at the Heighton on the bypass?
Jerry, you're in that board.
Jerry. He called me and he said if there's ever an opening, he'd like to be considered.
Okay.
I think I asked you that last meeting too, didn't I?
Just a point of procedure that maybe, again, Jason could check for us. Because the county has many, many boards and commissions with many board members, and this happens, I believe, a lot. And I don't know if there's a letter or an initial notice before board action.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
find that out tomorrow.
yeah, Jason will find out if there's a procedure to notify the person
Do they still have
Kinda that-
applications?
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah,
this
you know,
potential action could be
Maybe
happening.
they have somewhere they,
Who is the other alternate?
he was an alternate.
Jerry's the alternate.
Jerry and Brent were the alternates, I
Okay.
remember. I might have that letter.
And I think, Dan, there may be a question over the role of the alternates. And you've always showed up, but yeah.
I addressed that with him. I addressed that with him. And
Okay.
he knows that the alternates have had a vote on every decision we have made. So he knows that. Now he knows it. Because, he said, well, I'm just an alternate anyway. And I said, well, the other alternate has been at every meeting, and the other alternate has had a vote on everything that we did. Now I said, when it comes time to evaluate a property and have a vote on it, then the alternate might not be involved in that. But up to this point, the alternates have been very involved in developing the program. So I really got the impression that it's not important to him. But that's just an impression.
I think he'd be here if it was important to him.
That's what I mean. He'd be there tonight if this were important, or at least he would have called someone and said, "Hey, I'm really interested, but I can't be there tonight." And so, yeah, I think we have to find out what the procedure is, and then but our bylaws do say that you can request that the commissioners replace him.
We have to.
So, we want to make a motion to replace. First,
We'll probably wait and see what the process,
I would
like the
say-
procedure is.
what would be our recommendation to the commissioners?
I see, you send them a letter.
Probably.
Yeah,
probably
I'll-
said-
Oh, before we finally
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
get
So
out,
we
you're
want to
out.
send a request for a letter. Do I have a motion to request?
Or could you say you're recommending that commissioners replace him pending following whatever procedures, including that you'd like a letter sent, or is that too busy?
Yeah, I think first we would want to recommend a letter sent out to him about his further.
Attendance, or if he wants to be a part of it, he needs to attend the meeting.
And the letter could say, if you don't respond by such and such a date, then.
Yeah, from
From the
we're making a
commission.
recommendation to them to see that.
Start that process.
So I have a first, I have a second. First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
How you doing, Maggie?
She's done great. Oh, wait, great.
You awful quiet.
I can smell my husband cooking dinner downstairs. I'm really hungry.
All right, so any further business? Any other, have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the vote.
Richard? Second?
Also, all in favor? You adjourn.
I hope he saves you some.
Who seconded
I assume he's making it for her.
7:41.
On a tray.
Because like the baby's too small to be the baby dinner.
Next meeting,
Oh, yeah, next meeting,
March 21st.
March 23rd.
I have been working on some sample applications for us to practice evaluating. If you want to do that at the next meeting, I suppose the advisors could, we could review that and have a look at it between now and the next meeting. But we could do that as an exercise next meeting or the following meeting if you want. If you wanted to concentrate on signage next meeting, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
I think it would be good to start that exercise
Sitting there on your.
for the next meeting. We're kind of in a waiting
Or on
pattern
computer.
with the commissioners getting back to us. I think
I'm a
it's a good
dinosaur.
time. If we start,
Yeah, even if it was just one sample for next meeting.
The exposure was.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Did it go? I don't know if it's snowing out there or good. I don't know.
It dropped the mountain.
There is a dusting, a very, very light dusting on stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Everybody have a safe trip home.
If we hit your mailbox, don't yell at us, okay? Like,